All right, today we are jumping headfirst into, well, maybe one of the most profound and genuinely mind-bending ideas in all of science. Seriously, this is a concept that doesn't just tweak what we know, it completely rewrites our understanding of existence itself. But before we get into the deep end, let me just ask you something really simple. Think about it right now. The room you're in, the screen you're looking at. Is any of it really there? I mean, really, truly there, independent of you? It sounds like a crazy question, right? The obvious answer is, yeah, of course. But what's so wild is that modern physics, it's hinting that the real answer is so much stranger and honestly way more interesting than you could probably imagine. So to even begin to get why, we have to start with the picture of reality that we all just carry around in our heads. You know, our gut feeling, our common sense intuition about how the universe is supposed to work. And it goes something like this, right? We think of space and time as this big, empty stage where the whole drama of the universe plays out. We just assume that objects, a chair, the moon, they have specific properties, whether we're looking at them or not. Time? Well, that just flows, right? Past to future, no question. And us? We're just passive witnesses, watching the whole show from the audience. This all feels totally solid, completely logical. Well, it's this exact picture that physics has spent the last 100 years basically just tearing to shreds. And this is where things get, well, they get really weird. For every single one of our common sense ideas, physics came back with a shocking, paradoxical answer. Like, we assumed information should fill up a 3D space. That makes sense. But then black holes come along and teach us that all their information, everything they've ever swallowed, scales with their 2D surface area, not the volume. And we assumed objects have definite properties, but quantum mechanics? Wow. It showed us that particles can be linked in ways that their properties aren't even decided until we measure them. That just completely defies all classical logic. And maybe the weirdest of all, time itself just seems to evaporate. From the Wheeler to Witt equation, which is our best shot at a fundamental equation for the entire universe. It was like the universe was screaming at us, hey, your assumptions are totally, deeply wrong. Okay, so these weren't just little puzzles to solve. No way. These were massive cracks in the foundation. They were hints that we needed a completely new starting point, a whole new foundation for reality itself. And that new starting point, it comes from flipping the entire problem completely on its head. What if, instead of trying to cram observers, people like you and me, into some pre-existing objective world out there, we start with the observer? What if we've been looking at reality from the wrong direction this whole time? And this leads to a statement that is, well, it's truly radical. It's this: there is no objective reality. Just let that sink in for a second. Every single piece of evidence you think you have for an independent external world is, by definition, something you experienced. It's a subjective experience. You have never, ever actually stepped outside of your own perspective to check if it's really there. So what do we call this world that we all seem to agree on? The new model has a name for it: an intersubjective reality. And here's a great way to think about it. Imagine a bunch of people witness a car crash. Okay, each person has their own unique, subjective view, right? From their angle at that moment. But the parts of their stories that match up, the consistent overlap, like a red car hit a blue truck, that is what we end up calling the objective event. And that brings us to the most crucial point, the new mantra. Reality isn't some pre-existing thing that we go out and discover. Reality is the very process of making observations consistent with each other. That's it. That's the new fundamental rule that replaces all of our old broken assumptions. And here's where it gets really cool. Once you make this one shift in your thinking, something absolutely amazing happens. All of those bizarre, totally disconnected puzzles from 20th century physics, they suddenly just snap into place. They form a single, beautiful, coherent picture. And what's so incredible is that you can see physicists in different fields were already bumping into pieces of this giant puzzle. You had the holographic principle, which said information about a space lives on its boundary. Well, that makes perfect sense if a boundary is just the place where observers interact. Then you have ideas like quantum Darwinism, which basically showed that objective facts are just the bits of quantum information that get copied over and over and over again, becoming stable enough for lots of observers to see. See? They're not different theories. They're all just different ways of saying the same thing. Reality is built from agreement. And with this new foundation, the very building blocks of our universe get redefined. It's wild. Space isn't a container anymore. It's this emergent thing that comes from the quantum links, the entanglement between observers. Time isn't some universal clock ticking everywhere at once. It's the unique flow of information from your perspective, from my perspective. And matter itself? Matter is just a stable, consistent pattern of information that you, me, and everyone else can agree on. Okay, so this takes us to an even more stunning conclusion. I mean, if reality is all about information and rules for making that information consistent, then what does that actually make it? And this is not a metaphor. The source material is crystal clear on this point. Reality is not like a computer simulation, it is a computation. The laws of physics, that's the algorithm. The universe, that's the processor, and it's executing the code right now. There's no base reality underneath it all. This is it. And just like any computation, this cosmic computer has a resolution. Like the pixels on your screen. There's a smallest possible unit of space, which we call the Planck area. This is the fundamental pixel size of spacetime. And to give you an idea of how small that is, it's almost impossible to imagine. But if you blew up a single atom to the size of the entire known universe, one of these pixels would still be smaller than a human hair. Reality isn't smooth and continuous, it's digital. So what's the total data capacity of this universal computer? Well, the number is so vast, it basically breaks our brains. It's 10 to the 122nd power. That's a 1 with 122 zeros after it. That's the total number of bits that can be stored on the holographic screen that is our observable universe. It's a finite number, but it is just unimaginably, staggeringly huge. So, if the universe is a giant computer, that begs the obvious question, right? Who or what is running the program? And the answer is the most profound and cyclical, looping part of this entire idea. It's what's known as the ultimate strange loop. Let's just walk through it step by step. First, you have the universe's basic computation. It produces observers. Step 2, those observers devolve minds that can create models of the reality around them. Then, eventually, those minds develop the very idea of a simulation, and they start building their own. Now, as technology improves, their simulations get better and better and more accurate until, finally, they create a perfect simulation of their own universe, which, of course, is the very simulation they themselves are living in. You see it? The snake is literally eating its own tail. So in essence, the universe is a self-simulating program. It's not running on some computer sitting outside of itself. The system is the computer. It literally computes itself into existence through the very act of being observed and understood by the conscious beings that it produces. We aren't just in the universe. We are the very mechanism that makes the whole loop close. And that leaves us with one final, just breathtaking question to think about. Are we, and our endless quest for knowledge, are we simply reality's way of knowing itself? Is our very understanding of the cosmos the final step that closes the loop and makes the whole thing real? It's a thought that doesn't just put us in the story of existence, it puts us right at the very center of it.